Good morning. I'm standing in the middle of our kitchen garden, and as you can see, there's not much to see yet. We made the first sowings of annual vegetables about 2 weeks ago, but it will be some time before we can harvest anything. Yet we're picking mixed salads from the garden at this moment. Let me show you some of the plants that we're harvesting now. Plant number 1, landcress. It's from the cress family, so it has quite a strong mustardy taste, but it's milder in spring. It's a biennial, so these plants, well, I did not sow them because I have not sown landcress for years, because it self-sows quite prolifically, so the only thing you need to do is let some plants form seeds. But these germinated last year, and this year we can pick the leaves, and then they will set seed and the process will go on. Plant number 2, salad burnet. This is a perennial and it will self-seed somewhat. It forms rosettes about 30 centimeters wide, and you can see it starts growing very early in the season. With the leaves have a cucumber-like flavor, quite nice, but there's also a little bitterness. With the small ones I will just use them like this in the salad, but if they're bigger I will strip off the leaves from the stalks. Plant number 3, eeuwig muskool, which means eternal kale in Dutch. These are perennial kales. They don't set seed, which means you can only propagate them by taking cuttings, which is very easy to do in spring. I do it every year because sometimes I lose plants in the winter. I've heard from people who say that they have plants decades old, over a decade old. My plants unfortunately never get that old. This one is plant that I propagated last year. They will get bigger. They grow to about 1 meter, 3 feet high. And the leaves have quite a nice mild kale taste, milder than most annual kales, I'd say. Plant number 4, bloodbean sorrel. It's one of the many sorrel varieties. Not the tastiest in my book, but probably the prettiest one. And as sorrel, of course, it has an acidic taste. We're back home in our backyard that we planted as an edible forest garden about 14 years ago, and there's even more to pick here in the herb layer of the garden. Plant number 5 is Good King Henry, which is a perennial related to spinach, but unlike spinach it has a slight bitterness. So I only use the very young leaves for the salads, or preferably I blanch them under one of these clay pots. You can see what it looks like. It gets this pretty pinkish color. So I'm going to pick some of these. Plant number 6, seaweed, which is a short-lived perennial, and it is an ancestor of both red beets and chard. But it is a coastal plant, but as you can see, it does not need to be close to the sea to thrive. It is self-sowing all over the place in our garden, and the taste is quite similar to chard. Plant number 7, Alexanders, which is supposed to be biennial, but these couple of plants I've got here are in their 3rd year now. They did flower last year and they produced lots of seeds, so there are seedlings coming up all over, which I'll be replanting. The flavor is quite strong. It resembles lovage or celery, so you don't want too much in the salad, but I quite like it. Plant number 8 is Sweet Cicely, which is a perennial. It's early in the season, so the plants are quite small yet, but they will get a lot bigger, and they have a nice aniseed-like flavor. Plant number 9, wild garlic, also called ramsons. It's a spring bulb and it's very well suited for planting under trees because it grows in the spring before the trees develop leaves and before there is too much shade. The taste is quite garlicky, so you also don't want to use too much of it, or perhaps chop it a little finer for your salad. I like to use edible flowers in my salads, like this sweet violet, which is also a great ground cover, and the flowers are sweetly scented. Another early flowering edible flower in our garden is this polyanthus. I grew them from seeds some years ago and I don't remember what variety it was, but all kinds of polyanthus are edible. So here you have it, my 12 ingredient March salad from the garden, full of color and full of flavor.